Success isn't measured on a lateral scale. Success is measured by the legacy left behind. Nintendo is a company with many successes and failures. The legacy of the Nintendo 3DS is a perfect representation of this history. Its life began with shackles, but once those shackles were lifted, the console truly became the next generation of the Nintendo DS. Imagine this for a moment. The date is January 1st, 2010. Many wonders are yet to be released from Nintendo. Games such as No More Heroes 2 and Nintendo's sequel of the very successful Super Mario Galaxy are on the horizon. From the release of the Nintendo DSi XL to what would be the critically acclaimed Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver. These are just some of the many items Nintendo has planned to release. However, games weren't the only thing coming this year. We didn't know it yet, but Nintendo had something else up their sleeve. In 2009, rumblings and rumors of the next generation Nintendo handheld were heard. This was to be the successor of the Nintendo DS. Sure, we had the DS Lite, then the DSi, and now the larger DSi XL. But small improvements over the last system revision weren't the leap we were expecting. Nintendo had studied the market and observed the shift in how we consumed media, from movies to home television and even some of the competitors' own games. One thing seemed very common: 3D. Content in 3D seemed to be everywhere, and Nintendo noticed. As we've seen before, Nintendo likes to innovate. They like to think outside of the box and create unique, unparalleled experiences. The next handheld from Nintendo would be no different. In June 2010, the world was introduced to the successor of the DS, the Nintendo 3DS. Coming to the stage in 2010 was Satoru Iwata. What is the Nintendo 3DS? A fair question with a simple answer. The quickest response at the time of the announcement was a DS that plays games in 3D. It's in the name. At first glance, the system wasn't too different than what we already became accustomed to. Key features of the DS had been carried over to the 3DS. It had the familiar clamshell design, all the buttons were in the same places, and had dual screens. Upon first look though, the differences were apparent. This console was slick, designed like it was from the future. The matte texture of the DSi was gone in favor of a shiny, sparkling paint job. As well, there were two cameras on the outside of the console for 3D photos. Meanwhile, the inside of the 3DS boasted a larger top screen with rich black paint job to make you more immersed, a 3D slider to alter the depth of the 3D effect, and a single camera facing inward. On the lower half of the system, the star of the show was the circle pad. The first time that a DS console had a form of an analog stick. Surely it was added to assist players when navigating through 3D worlds. Smaller differences included the home, select, and start buttons under the touchscreen, and a singular square power button. On the left side of the console, there was a volume slider, and on the right, a wireless connectivity slider. Two other features not seen on the outside, but on the inside, were a gyroscope and motion sensor. After a long-winded introduction that fateful day in 2010, Nintendo announced the first game for the 3DS, Kid Icarus Uprising. Pit shows up on screen and runs towards a light door. He jumps in, being symbolic for the jump in we are going to be doing with the 3DS. Shortly after, Pit flies to the screen and yells, "Sorry to keep you waiting." A warm welcome to a friend we've been missing for many years. Jumping forward to the year 2011, over the last year we've learned of the console's price and release date. Set for a release date March 27, 2011 in the US and a price point of $250. We also learned about new games coming to the console. Many consumers and investors were shocked to find out that the price tag would be just over $100 that of the Nintendo Wii, a move Nintendo would be sure to course correct less than 6 months later. A joyous moment for many, Nintendo's new flagship handheld, the Nintendo 3DS, was released. Glasses-free 3D in the palm of our hands. All that was left between us and the new dimension was a cardboard box and a few items to go along with it. Opening the system's box, you get a hefty manual in multiple languages and a small pack of AR cards. The AR cards children will be the first time introduced to augmented reality. Otherwise, you have the console and the charger below. Upon booting up the system, you're introduced to the system settings. Going through the normal monotony of time and internet settings, you reach it, the first array into the world of 3D. The screen asks you to move your 3D slider up to set the depth. The words Nintendo 3DS sink into the screen. What feels like far away, but at the same time only a few inches. Then they come out to you as if about to burst from the screen. This is it. This is the next generation of Nintendo DS. After these settings are complete, the screen goes dark with Nintendo 3DS showing for a moment or two. You are then greeted to a new, yet familiar screen, the main menu. Similar to that of the DSi, you have multiple rounded square edge icons at the bottom screen. And when you hover over them, the top screen displays the title in a little more depth, with 3D items floating around. The 3DS is pre-installed with a few applications from the start. The fun ones, AR games, Face Raiders, Meme Maker. The average ones, the 3DS camera, 3DS sounds, download play. And the boring, never touched ones, parental controls, system settings, health, and safety. However, there is one glaring omission from this list: Street Pass Mii Plaza. Single-handedly the best application to ever grace a Nintendo handheld. Street Pass was only ever available on the Nintendo 3DS, and its importance might be slightly over-exaggerated, but it connected us to each other more than ever. Whenever you were out and about, you could put your 3DS in sleep mode while walking. If you passed another person doing the same, your Miis would interact and trade information. In the plaza, you would see the Mii, see what was recently played, and get the chance to take said Mii to save Mii and get puzzle pieces. You could tell you passed someone because a green notification light would glow on your 3DS, letting you know you had a new visitor. At least until Nintendo released its own social media application, Miiverse, but that's for a later time. The Street Pass feature had individual game applications as well, ranging from item box collections in Super Mario 3D Land and Smash Bros. Street Smash. Although the pre-installed content is fun and enjoyable in their own rights, everyone knows a system is more than just the pre-installed software, but the games. As of today, looking back, we know the catalog of the 3DS is vast. It wasn't always like this. Upon launch, the 3DS had minimal support, launching only with 18 titles, of which only 5 were created from Nintendo, and of those 5, 3 of them were just variations on the Nintendogs plus Cats. Standouts from the launch lineup were Street Fighter IV and Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Shadow Wars. This wasn't really what consumers were expecting. The lackluster lineup secured the 3DS with a rocky start. Nintendo would begin a small course correction with the launch of one of the most legendary titles of all time, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time 3D. An instant classic reimagined for the new handheld. This showed the determination Nintendo had to make the 3DS a household name. Even with the best game of all time, according to Metacritic, under its belt, it wasn't enough weight to maintain upwards momentum. Just 4 months after the launch, on July 28, Nintendo announced Japan as the first region to receive a significant price cut of 10,000 yen, with other markets to follow. In North America, the 3DS retired the hefty $250 price tag down to $169.99. The above mention was a action very few companies could afford to make. This move, coupled by a steadying supply of heavy hitters, not only doubled but nearly tripled the launch year's hardware sales in 2012. In 2012, the 3DS began to see momentum of its game's quality and quantity rise. Probably the most notable title released for this console during this year was Kid Icarus Uprising. As controversial and how inaccessible the game may have been, there was no doubt that Kid Icarus took something special and manifested a unique experience that could only be done with the 3DS. Stellar third-party offerings began to pullulate as the console saw the release of titles like Metal Gear Solid, Snake Eater 3D, Resident Evil Revelations, and Tales of the Abyss. Surprisingly, Nintendo announced the CirclePad Pro accessory, finally to make up for the lack of dual analog sticks. As well, they announced and delivered a new model of the 3DS only 1 year into the console's life. That console was the Nintendo 3DS XL. Released in the middle of summer 2012, the Nintendo 3DS XL launched boasting a larger form factor for just that, to be larger and have larger displays. Both screens saw an increase of around 90% as Nintendo states. As well, the select, home, and start buttons received facelifts. The general design was more secure and felt more premium. The new console revision and the games released in 2012 helped cement the 3DS trajectory upward to new heights. It saw sales almost 3 times that of its launch year. One of the greatest years was 2013. After 2012's release of the Wii U to abysmal sales, Nintendo needed to strike fire the 3DS. Nintendo needed their handheld to be flying off the shelves and needed the release of extraordinary games. 2013 saw the release of Fire Emblem Awakening, a revival of a classic strategy game, placing a culmination of everything Intelligent Systems had learned from their previous games into this iteration, as it was their final attempt for the franchise that paid off wonderfully. Legend of Zelda: Link Between Worlds also released this year, a successor to the classic Link to the Past, a unique, non-straightforward Zelda title where you can choose how you would like to complete the dungeons. Also making dynamic use of Link being able to merge with walls, creating eccentric puzzles. Additional titles throughout the year included Pokemon X and Y, Luigi's Mansion, Etrian Odyssey 4, Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D, Shin Megami 4, Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, Mario and Luigi Dream Team, and Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. An impeccable lineup for sure. One of the larger updates that came that year for 3DS was on December 9th, 2013, Miiverse. Miiverse came to the system a year after Wii U. Low moderation on comments, posting of pictures from your game, and a platform to voice your opinion to the masses of any of that software. Now, the original 3DS did lag a bit when using Miiverse. The newer model 3DS fared a bit better. During this time, Nintendo released a version of the 3DS that perplexed many, the 2DS. It didn't feature the main gimmick of 3D. It didn't clamp shut, just as all the previous models and even the DS models did. It was more of a wedge shape. This console was perfectly and marketed for a younger audience. It was a cheaper alternative to that of the 3DS. The 2DS sold throughout 2014 and 15, sales figures for the 3DS began a downward trend. Meanwhile, releases for the console still had some hard hitters. Games like Super Smash Bros. For 3DS, the first time Smash Bros. Was on the go. The indie game to start the craze, Shovel Knight released, and Kirby and Yoshi had releases. Despite games releasing, gamers began looking elsewhere to spend their cash. The competition released new hardware, and the 3DS and Wii U weren't yielding the results that were expected. 2015 saw the first pair of major revisions for the 3DS console, being the new 3DS and the new 3DS XL. Both were major upgrades in different ways. They came with all 4 shoulder buttons, a second thumbstick akin to a mouse thumbstick. The other most useful upgrade was Super Stable 3D. This meant that the 3D would use eye tracking and be able to be viewed correctly, even if in different angles, something that was not possible before. These versions had a handful of games released specifically for them because the games needed more CPU power. A port of the Wii JRPG title Xenoblade Chronicles, as well as the long-awaited Minecraft. The final year shown as a positive for unit sales over the previous was the year of 2016. Imminent, the release of the Nintendo Switch was coming. In 2017, the writing was on the wall for both the 3DS and Wii U. It was only a matter of time before both consoles would take their last breaths. Even after executives confirmed the 3DS would continue receiving support, Reggie confirmed 3DS has a long life in front of it. And while not entirely untrue, the future of the 3DS was a lot closer than it seemed from that comment. The 3DS was seeing first-party releases edge further and further apart until an announcement of a new game would come and go. July saw the release of the last revision of the 3DS, being the new 2DS XL. The console sports a screen on top, no speaker or camera. Instead, the cameras are located in the middle hinge and the speakers are located at the bottom of the console. Many people didn't even know that this console released. Surprisingly, many special editions of this console were. One of the most sought after new 2DS XL consoles was that of The Legend of Zelda Hylian Shield. 2017 was the final year Nintendo self-published more than 5 titles to the console. 2018 and 19 only saw 5, then only 3 games being released. The last title to be released was Yokai Watch 3, which was released on February 8, 2019 in the United States. The following years brought the announcement of the eShop closure on both the 3DS and Wii U. March 2023 brought along these closures with over 1,000 games lost to time. The only highlight remaining from this closure is at the time of writing, the eShop will remain open to allow for re-downloading the content you've already purchased. After the long-lived Nintendo 3DS family was laid to rest in 2020, the community revived the system with one application, Homebrew. The Nintendo 3DS was a console with a multitude of games spanning from evergreen titles to the most obscure and niche titles such as Codename Steam. Along with these titles were many virtual console games as well as 3DS eShop only titles. With Nintendo's own notice of the eShop closure falling in March 2023, many fans began arranging their own course of action. Do they pay for everything and anything before the shop closes, or do they go to Homebrew? Without an official means to purchase some titles at a reasonable MSRP, many consider going to marketplaces like eBay to buy games secondhand. While these locations are beneficial, rare games such as Metal Gear Solid 3D have new customers shelling out over $100 for a single title. Introducing Homebrew. Homebrew is an application that exploits the SD card to allow numerous alterations to the 3DS. These changes can be as simple as having custom themes or installing full 3DS games. Homebrew on the 3DS has become one of the easiest system modifications you can perform. There are videos and websites dedicated to giving step-by-step breakdowns of the process, so you cannot fail. In most cases, you would actually have to go out of your way to fail, and in doing so, will result in your console being bricked or unable to be used. When you succeed, however, you open the possibilities tenfold of what the 3DS can do. You can simply download full retail games, full virtual games, or eShop games, all with some simple clicks or scans of QR codes. For example, take a look at how seamless this process is. You install it, once installed you go to the QR reader, and from there you Google search and find a QR code for the game you want. And there you go, simple and to the point. Aside from just simple changes, you could also get your new 3DS or new 2DS to stream directly to your computer. No cables needed, unless you need audio. In fact, all the gameplay for this video has been captured from the streaming application. It's quite amazing and is a good alternative to buying a 3DS with a capture modification or paying someone to modify your console. Now to focus on the main reason for homebrewing any console, the games. The wide variety and abundance of games on the 3DS is absurd. In North America region, there are about 400 physical released games and close to 1,000 eShop only titles. Many collectors want to own their games, but when you pair it to the cost of each of these titles, you may never get a chance to even test them. Homebrewing takes the difficulty of money out of the equation. Want a game? Download it. Want a video from the eShop that's years old? Get it. Updates and DLC DLC for titles you don't own yet? Easy, download that too. Do you need to have all virtual titles on the go? Easy, get those as well. Past the games, you can download themes, videos, movies, and even custom games. The 3DS legacy is constructed of monumental games, unique user experiences, and more direct social interactions. Nintendo was forced to gamble on unit losses for the chance at success, and they struck it. Nintendo wanted to create a system for you not to only play on, but to encounter a new way to play. A vision that was first helmed with the console's first slogan. Maybe handheld gaming was originally about where you could go and play, but with the 3DS, it was more about how far removed you could be when you take a look inside. Thank you for watching. Till next time.